Giants, obviously a big part of this season, and we'll get to the playoff race in a second, has been the development of Daniel Jones. I know you pay close attention to the quarterbacks around the league. I've heard you on the air talk in depth about Daniel. Your thoughts on how he's progressed over the course of his second season?
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Daniel Jones because I'm a fan of what he brings. He's tough. He's a good kid. He's smart. He has good timing and rhythm to his game. So I always appreciate that first and foremost because I know how hard it is to be consistently good week in and week out, year after year in the NFL. And so with Daniel Jones and learning a new system this year in the COVID and not, off-season program, I think he's done a phenomenal job. I think he continues to do better. Of course, there's things he has to clean up. We all get frustrated of some of those turnover-worthy plays or, trying to force a pass as he's getting sacked or fumbles in the pocket. But, man, he's a young quarterback, and there's still a lot of room to learn and grow. And for us at PFF, he's our number one grader throwing the ball 20-plus yards downfield, 98.8. So, and another area that I was actually really impressed of is when he's in rhythm and he's throwing 10-plus yards downfield, he ranks fifth in passing grade for us. And this was before Week 11, but 19 big-time throws, 2 turnover-worthy plays. He's behind Rodgers, Wilson, Brady, and Mahomes. So he's in good company there. I see a lot of good things, but also some room for improvement.
Bruce, when it comes to young quarterbacks, we often hear they have to walk that fine line, especially early in their careers, of determining when is the right time to just throw the ball away, live to see another down, versus, okay, let me try to press the envelope, which is what you just alluded to. And I think it's fair to say, Daniel Jones has had to navigate that fine line over the course of his first 2 seasons. As a former quarterback, I'm curious, what is that decision-making process like? And is it easier said than done in terms of just flipping that switch and getting to the point where your decision-making is where it should be, where you're always reading the situation the right way?
No, absolutely. It's definitely easier said than done because when he's getting sacked and getting pulled to the ground, do you think he's throwing it knowing he's about to throw an interception? No, he's a competitor. He thinks he's going to alleviate that sack and get the ball out of his hands and complete a pass, and it goes into a turnover. When you think of the quarterback position and how much is, on their plate, how much they have to process before the snap, you're getting the call in the headset from the coach on the sideline. You have to know the down and distance. You have to know the personnel grouping that's getting sent in for your offense. You have to keep an eye on the play clock. You have to call the shifts, the motions, the snap count, the play in the huddle, break, get to the line of scrimmage. Now recognize the defense, the coverage they're in. As you're still watching the play clock, you have to send the shifts, the motion. And now you're thinking, my timing, my footwork, where am I working? And right when the ball snaps, it's like, okay, am I hot? Where's my progression now? And so there's so much, and then all of a sudden you get hit up in the backside of the head, and you have to do it all over again. So the speed is at which you have to process these things for young quarterbacks. It's tough. And as you continue to play more and in the same system, that becomes second nature. Guys, you're watching Tom Brady, right? He's in a new offense this year. We've seen some good things from him. We've seen some bad things from him as far as the offense is concerned and being in the new system. So I think a lot on the quarterback's plate, and then Daniel Jones, for instance, answering your question, it's easier said than done to not force that throw, to not, put your team in that position. But as he continues to go, you have to learn from those mistakes, and that's what the coaches want to see. Is he learning from them? Is he growing and getting better week in and week out?
And, Bruce, the other thing that I've been impressed by is one issue he had as a rookie was holding on to the ball too long, and I think that led to a lot of those turnover-worthy plays that we've talked a lot about. And this year, his average time to throw is way down. When he gets rid of the ball in under 2.5 seconds, he's one of the more efficient quarterbacks in the NFL, according to your guys' metrics over there at PFF. And I think Jason Garrett, especially considering the struggles the offensive line had earlier in the year, has done a really good job, and Daniel's bought into it, working a quicker passing game and getting the ball out of his hands. And I thought that was a focus heading into the year, and I think it's been a big source of a lot of his success and even cutting down on some of those turnover-worthy plays.
No, absolutely. That's a good point. He is. you're understanding the offense, what kind of the coach is asking for. You get the ball out of your hand quicker, and I think Daniel Jones is doing a good job in that instance. I mean, he has, around 230-some snaps, attempts, 9 yards and under. So I think the Giants are throwing a lot of quick game. Between 1 and 9 yards, he's 121 out of 170 for 970 yards. So there is a lot of quick game. Where I think, honestly, this offense can help him out a little bit, and I learned this as I got older. When you get comfortable with the throws downfield, like the 18 to 20-yard range, that's almost easier than quick game, because quick game, you have to process things so fast. You have to be very accurate, and you're making the decisions in a split second, based on one movement of a linebacker. So I think, when I look at Daniel Jones's grades and how he's performing, when he's throwing the ball 10-plus yards downfield and in rhythm, I mean, he's like I pointed out before, man, he's one of the best out there, with being up with Rodgers, Wilson, Brady, and Mahomes. So I think as he progresses, I'd like to see this offense with more play-action pass, with more shifts in motion, get him set up to where now he can play action, he can see the field clearer and better, and now drop those, little touch passes over linebackers in that intermediate range, and I feel like that'll be easier to him, and also you're getting more chunk plays that way.
Bruce, I'm glad you brought up the other facets of the Giants' offense, because I think what's interesting is the Giants haven't turned the ball over in each of the last 2 games, which had been an issue in the early stage of the season, and I would argue that's coincided with the strength of the rushing attack. I mean, they've had over 100 yards in each of the last 5 games, and some changes or tweaks on the offensive line, some, of course, because of the COVID, others because of perhaps them moving around some offensive linemen. How much of the play of the run game, as well as the perhaps improvement of the offensive line, do you think has helped Daniel Jones specifically over these last 2 games?
Yeah, I mean, I think that helps tremendously. I mean, anytime we saw Russell Wilson this past weekend, right? He was playing more efficient, making smarter decisions. 28 attempts I think he had. But you see, when you're able to run the football, it takes some pressure off the quarterback. And I think for the Giants, I mean, it's also when you run the ball. People think, hey, we need to be able to run the ball. Well, yeah, but when are you running it? You can't just hand it off first and second down and then expect your quarterback to make it happen on third down to save you to get a new set of downs. So I do think it's mixing that up, and that's what I think the Giants have done a good job the last few weeks of mixing the offense up, the calls up, getting the run game going, the offensive line, and then Daniel Jones playing smarter. And, guys, we've harped on it throughout my whole career about protecting the football, and it kind of gets old at times. But, man, it's so true. When you see Lamar Jackson go through a slump, Russell Wilson go through a slump, what do you see? It's just an enormous amount of turnover-worthy plays, whether they're fumbles, whether they're interceptions. So just come back to reality a little bit and execute the offense and try not to do too much.
Yeah, and frankly, and you talk about the running game, I think Daniel Jones' ability to run the ball, Bruce, has opened up the rest of the running attack. If you go back and watch the tape, you see either, backside safeties or linebackers not willing to hit that initial hole for the running back because they're waiting to see if Daniel Jones is going to take that ball on a read option. And these aren't read options that go for, 6-7 yards. He's taking it for explosive plays. So how, as a quarterback, does that help the rest of your game when that quarterback is a threat in that read option game for opposing defenses?
Oh, for sure, because you just pointed it out. Now defenses are just a little bit hesitant to fill that hole because there's got to be someone to account for the quarterback. And now you bring one extra guy in the box, and now all of a sudden you're getting easier throws outside because they're one-on-one matchups. And quite frankly, guys, I think Daniel Jones is the type of quarterback that he wants to be involved in the running game. He wants to be involved and feel like he's playing in a football game. I think he's tough, he's physical, he's a big, strong guy, and I think he enjoys it. It's crazy to say, but I think he enjoys getting hit. I know when I played, I wanted to get hit early in football games because I wanted to feel like I was part of the football game. I didn't want to just be clean and sit back and pass. I wanted to feel like I was grinding just like my teammates, and I see Daniel Jones being like that. So I give credit to Judge and Jason Garrett for mixing in the running game and the quarterback run, because those are big plays, and it's backbreakers against the defense. And what I'd want to see Jones even more so is not just the quarterback runs, but now when he drops back to pass, navigate that pocket better. Hitch up in there, find those creases and lanes on 3rd down and 5, take off for the first down. I mean, because he's athletic enough to do that, and we see with Kyler Murray, Lamar Jackson, that's when they're at their best, is not when they're calling a quarterback run, but actually when they're dropping back to pass, and then, boom, they take off and just split a defense.
To provide some fair context in this conversation for the sake of our audience, Bruce Gradkowski's longest run, 21 yards in 2009 when he was a member of the Raiders. So, Bruce, you shouldn't sell yourself so short. You had a little Daniel Jones flash here or there throughout your career.
Yeah, it wasn't any, 60-yard or anything like that, but I remember that run, too. I think it was against the Jets, and I filled in for Jamarcus Russell, and we're down we're down probably by 30 points or so. And I take off, and it was kind of, I'm not going to lie, it was a sweet kind of run. We had a play-action pass, and I set up in the pocket behind the right guard, and I had some pressure, and I moved left, moved right, and then kind of, dip, duck, dive, dodge, and sprint up the middle of the field, and just got tripped up at the end. I kind of did a stumble, and I got up and gave the first down marker sign, and I think I was on Come On Man that weekend, because they're like, dude, you're down 30 points and you're signaling for a first down.
That's funny. That's very funny. When you watch Daniel Jones go through his progressions, Bruce, where do you see his comfort level right now operating in the NFL, in this offense? Do you see him getting through his progressions quickly enough? I thought earlier in the year he was maybe sticking on that first read a little bit too long. How do you see his ability to kind of process right now and the speed that he's going through what he needs to do mentally post-snap?
Yeah, and I think he can do that, and at times you see him doing it really well. And as young quarterbacks, it's tough because at times you want to play perfect. So you stick on that first progression, that first read, because you don't want to miss it. Because in that film room, if you come off that first read and you get to your second, and the first read on film the next day was open, they're going to say, well, just throw it to your first read. So you're really cautious of, don't miss the first read. And at times it could, make you play a little slow. So I saw from, Joe Burrow this year, at times he's not getting to his second and third progression. At times you look down at the rush. And I think as a young quarterback, get through your progression, because sometimes if you go 1 to 2 very quick, now you could get the ball out of your hand, even if you're about to get some pressure by the D-line or a blitzer. So the quicker you could get through your progression and process these things, the quicker you could get the ball out of your hand, and it helps your offensive line. So I think that comes with time as well. I see Daniel Jones doing it well at times, and then others, he sticks on a guy too long. So it just comes with continuing to learn this new offense as well that he's in. And you guys pointed out, I mean, it's great that he's been protecting the ball as of lately, and that's what they're going to need from him if they want to have a chance to win this division.
Bruce, you brought up the offensive line play, and I'm very curious your perspective as a former quarterback, because this has been brought up a lot. It's fascinating to me. Normally when we talk about offensive line, we preach continuity, the importance of having the same 5 guys right out there for every game, because that helps chemistry. The Giants, though, they've been rotating tackles with 3 different guys. They've now been rotating guards. From the quarterback's mindset, in terms of what Daniel Jones is dealing with, when you've got over the course of a game movable parts and you've got a different right tackle, a different left tackle, how at all does that change your mindset as a quarterback? And are you surprised that the Giants have had success working with that operation?
It's tough, because when you have new offensive line in there, it's not just the physical ability as for a backup or anything like that, but it's more the communication. They haven't been in the lineup. They haven't worked with the same, group of 5. And that's tough because it's more about communication, being on the right page and going and doing your right assignment, right? Going to the right mic point, going to the will linebacker, making sure the double team's correct, not coming off it too fast. And those are things that come into play. And then with Daniel Jones, to want to utilize your snap count. Say you're playing a good defense like the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you want to get him to jump off sides, but you're like, I got, a new offensive lineman's in here. I don't want him to jump, So I think all those things play into it. And, like you talked about earlier too, is getting the ball out of your hand quick. And I think the Giants do that, with the quick passing game. But what I want to see even more, I think would help the offensive line is more play action pass.
Yeah, and they've actually run a lot of play-action pass. I think they're like 6th in the league the last 4 or 5 weeks, so they've done more and more of it. I'm with you, Bruce. I think that's helped a lot. I want to put you in the shoes of a quarterback going against the Giants' defense. They've been a zone-heavy defense this year. I think they're top 5 in their use of cover 2, cover 3. I think 3rd or 4th fewest snaps of cover 1. They like to start pre-snap, Bruce, 2 safeties deep, because they trust their front to stop the run. They try to disguise those zones as much as possible. They have movable pieces like Logan Ryan that can do a lot of different things. So when you're a quarterback dealing with a zone-heavy defense that disguises what they do very well, what are the challenges for a quarterback when you're facing a defense like that?
It's tough because, when I talk about before about everything a quarterback has to process, from calling the play in the huddle, breaking the huddle, getting the line of scrimmage, now orchestrating your own offense, shifts, motions, getting guys lined up. Now you're worried about, okay, where's my progression starting? What is the coverage right now? And for a team that switches it up a lot, what you see pre-snap isn't always what you're going to get post-snap. So for a quarterback, your decision will change the minute the ball is in your hands, and it continues to change as you drop back. So it's very important to know what you're looking at and be, very strict on what you want your eyes to see when you have a defense that moves around, and also is trying to play decisive. It's hard when you have, I'm speaking from a quarterback view, when you're playing a defense that disguises, it hurts the receivers as well. So the biggest thing you could do preparing against a defense like that is just make sure everyone's on the same page and playing fast. So I think the Giants do a good job of disguising, like you pointed out, and so forth like that. So, and especially, playing the Bengals, and, they're going to have a young quarterback in there that hasn't played much this season. So I think they'll have a great opportunity to kind of continue to mix things up.
I'm glad you brought up Bengals because that's exactly where I wanted to go next, Bruce. And I'm sure the Giants expected that they were going to go up against Joe Burrow. Unfortunately, the severe knee injury that he suffered against Washington. So as you alluded to, they're going to call on Ryan Finley, the 4th-round pick in 2019, and I believe he had 3 starts last season, Bruce, and it's well documented. The completion percentage was below 50. I know, to your point, he hasn't had much work this week, and maybe getting the first-team reps will help him build a little bit more chemistry heading into this game. But how much in your mind do you think this Bengals offense now changes as they go from Joe Burrow to Ryan Finley?
It's definitely going to change, and I say this a lot when the backup quarterback plays. It's not like it's a new offense, but every quarterback likes their own things. Like when I was in Pittsburgh with Big Ben, he liked different third down plays than I probably would have picked. So now with Finley getting prepared this whole week to start, there's a ton of communication in meetings about what he's comfortable, what he likes on first and second down. What are the play action passes he likes? What's the quick game he's comfortable with? Is he comfortable with empty formations that we saw Joe Burrow in so much during this season? Can he understand how the offensive line is protecting and so forth like that? So it's the communication this week of, okay, what's Finley comfortable with? Can we establish some sort of run and also, utilize the play action pass for him? How do we get the ball out of his hands quick and get him in rhythm in some sense? And those plays always vary, and they'll go through his third down package and see what he's comfortable with. So it will change. We will see a different offense than we have seen the first half of the season with Joe Burrow. And man, it really stinks of what happened to Joe.
Sucks.
I mean, I feel bad for him, and gosh, man, that's just terrible. You never want to see those things. So hopefully, I know he's a tough kid and he'll bounce back. So yeah, but tough on his end, but gives Finley an opportunity this week.
Absolutely. Bruce, final one for me, and we're joined by Bruce Gradkowski, former NFL quarterback, analyst for PFF, Pro Football Focus, and you can hear him on Sirius XM NFL Radio. Bruce, give me your breakdown. The NFC East, you got all 4 teams with 3 wins. The Eagles have that one tie against the Bengals, actually, that have them in first place right now. But, boy, Carson Wentz and the Eagles are not playing very good football right now. How do you break down what this NFC East is going to look like when we finally get through 17 weeks of this season?
Wow. I mean, this division is crazy. But you know what? It's so exciting for the teams in that division.
Sure.
If you're the Giants, you are right in the thick of things right now. And then you look at, the remaining schedule. They have some tough games, but they also have winnable games. Daniel Jones plays well, and I think that's, the point in that division, right? The NFC East. I think from here on out, whoever that quarterback is that really steps up and plays good, clean football, that team's going to win. Does Carson Wentz come out of this awful slump of all these turnovers? Can Daniel Jones piggyback off of how he's played the last few weeks? Andy Dalton's back and healthy. What does he look like? And Alex Smith. Alex Smith's a very efficient quarterback that usually protects the ball pretty well. And so it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting to see how this comes down. But, man, I just think the Giants have a legit shot with the way like Carson Wentz is and has been playing.
Well, there's no doubt about it, Bruce. I agree with you. I think the Giants are a very dangerous team considering how they've played over the last few games. It'll be interesting to see if that momentum can build after the bye. You brought up Andy Dalton, and that's a quarterback you're familiar with, having been in Cincinnati with him. And it's funny how you characterized it. It's going to probably come down to which quarterback takes care of the football. I look at the Cowboys as the intriguing team. I look at the Giants as the dangerous team, the Eagles in the driver's seat based on record. But how much is it fair to say, Bruce, that we really haven't seen enough of this Cowboys team with Andy Dalton at the controls, because he really, prior to this Vikings game, only had 2 games where he was the starter because, unfortunately, the concussion and the coronavirus?
No, absolutely. Look, I was a big fan of, Andy Dalton, playing this year. When Dak went down, I thought, man, the Cowboys still have a legit shot. Look, I backed up Andy for a few years, and it was his first 2 years in the NFL. He's a very smart quarterback. He understands where to go with the football. He's accurate with it. He makes smart decisions. And, so you're right. I think now that the Cowboys getting a big win last week, it's going to be important to see how they face, Washington this week. And then they have the Ravens, and then the Eagles and Giants later to end the season. So it's going to be fun to see how this shapes up. I think Andy's a good quarterback, a good player, and I think it's going to be come down to what quarterback in that division plays the best for the remainder of the season.
Bruce, we really appreciate the time today. Thank you so much for it. Stay safe out there and enjoy the rest of the NFL season, man.
Thanks, Bruce. Always good talking with you.
Yeah, you too. Have a good week.
Hey, you too.
You as well.
That is Bruce Gradkowski, again, former NFL quarterback. You can hear him on Sirius XM NFL Radio, and you can, of course, find this stuff on Pro Football Focus. He's one of their analysts over there, does all their quarterback grading, and kind of gives them that player insight on what's going on with the quarterback position.